Greetings and salutations, everybody. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the fantasy football top 10 wide receiver rankings for the 2018 fantasy football season, right? So anyway, this is another episode on the series of top 10s before the drafts begin this weekend. I know many of you are drafting, so I'm just going to cut right to it. Let's get into it right away, everybody. Hey everybody, how's it going? Okay, so what do we got here? At number 1, we have Antonio Brown. What a surprise, whoop-de-doo. I mean, of all the rankings, right? I mean, I guess all these number ones are givens, right? Maybe Le'Veon Bell in that last episode, not so much. Aaron Rodgers is a given. You know, Antonio Brown's a given. I'm not going to spoil the tight end one because maybe that happens to be, something, you'll see. Anyway, so we're talking about Antonio Brown, right? This guy he's one of the most consistent football players of maybe all time. I mean, he is the by far best wide receiver in the NFL right now. I'm just going to read a couple stats just so you get a little bit of perspective. Since 2013, okay, this man has had 100 receptions a season, okay? I'm going to read these stats, okay? Starting in 2013, 110 receptions, 129 receptions in 2014, 136 receptions in 2015, 106 in 16, 101 last season, right? He had a little bit of injury. It's okay, right? Now, let me read these yards. You ready? Okay, it's going to go from 13 to 17, okay? 1499, 1698, 1834, 1284, 1533. Okay? Who are we talking about right now? This guy's insane. Antonio Brown, 2013, 8 receiving touchdowns, 13 and 14, 13 in 2014. Then he had 10, then he had 12, then he had 9 last season. Again, that injury last year probably affected him more than, owners would have liked. Fantasy contribution-wise, plain and simple, Antonio Brown is going to be the number 1 wide receiver this year. I see him going, in full-point PPR leagues, he can go anywhere. Honestly, if you want a guy that's just going to be consistent and he's going to put up points every year, he's going to score touchdowns, he's going to catch the ball in your PPR leagues, Antonio Brown is a, no-brain option. You don't even have to have a brain. You can be a straight monkey. All you got to do, bonobo, you just got to click on Antonio Brown, and then, boom, you're set. Your wide receiver 1 is set, and you never have to replace him, only on bye weeks. Plain and simple, okay? If those stats weren't enough to prove it, come on. I'm just looking at these stats in awe. Just imagine, in 2015, he had 193 targets. 193 targets. Last season, he had 163 targets. Guys, Antonio Brown, he's the number 1. It's not even, you don't have to even think about it. If you've got the option, and those, if those top 4 running backs are gone, and you're thinking Antonio Brown, I'm all for it. Go for that. That's a great pick. Consistency, guys. Okay, so we're going to be talking about DeAndre Hopkins at number 2. Last season in fantasy, DeAndre Hopkins was the higher rated fantasy point contributor. When it comes, to the 16, 15-week basis, depends on what kind of league you play in. But you should definitely not be playing. Your fantasy championship should not be in week 17. Let me remind you. You do not want to have a fantasy championship in week 17. Please go change that immediately. Now you'll be thinking, Andrew, there's only 16 weeks in a season. Yes, but every team has a bye week. Therefore, there are 17 regular season weeks. You need to make sure that your fantasy championship is not in week 17. Because as soon as it gets there, Todd Gurley's not playing, Le'Veon Bell's not playing, right? These playoff contenders, they're not going to have their starting guys going, especially if they've already clinched playoffs. You got to be careful, guys. Make sure that your league commissioner, or if you're the commissioner, you go change that immediately. Okay, so DeAndre Hopkins. Last season, he proved that he is one of the most talented players in the NFL. Not only because when Deshaun Watson was healthy, he was absolutely unstoppable. But because even when Deshaun Watson was injured, okay, with the likes of Tom Savage and TJ Yates, DeAndre Hopkins was a viable wide receiver one option that produced on a weekly basis, right? I mean, it's unfathomable to think that there is a wide receiver in the league that can make Tom Savage look decent. Like, how is that even possible? Someone explain it to me. Like, even in December, right? In December, when I think it was TJ Yates starting at quarterback, he had a game where he had 11 receptions for 149 yards and two TDs. Two TDs with TJ Yates. How is that possible, people? Right? That's why I have DeAndre Hopkins at my number 2 when it comes to wide receivers, right? I think that because of the Deshaun Watson factor, Deshaun's coming back, I think because of how talented DeAndre Hopkins is, I just see him having a fantastic year. He had a great year last year. He outperformed Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's on the cover of Madden. DeAndre Hopkins could potentially be the number 1 wide receiver this year. The Madden curse, I'm just saying. Anyway, just purely like his stats last season. I'm just gonna go ahead and read them for y'all. Like it's insane, right? Had 174 targets, okay, but only 96 receptions. That can be tuned, right? That is 78 balls that got away from him, right? It's like a 55% completion percentage. That's not great, okay? That's gonna go up, right? He's not gonna have Tom Savage throwing ducks and TJ Yates throwing ducks for majority of the time, right? Deshaun Watson's going to come in. He's going to help make DeAndre Hopkins a better football player and a better fantasy football option. He had last season 1,378 receiving yards. As soon as those receptions go up, those yards go up. And he had 13 touchdowns. You couldn't have asked for more last season. And I think he's going to be able to produce similar numbers this coming season as the number 1 option of this Texans offense. Anyway, so let's go ahead and move on to the number 3, Odell Beckham Jr. So, I'm reading stats, right? Because with receivers, you don't have as much opportunity as like a running back has, right? Running backs are guaranteed, like Gurley is going to touch the ball and he's going to rush the ball 20 times a game, right? That is a guaranteed. Why? Because that's just how the offense is broken down. Now, when Jared Goff drops back, no one's guaranteeing that Cooper Kupp's going to catch every ball, or Brandon Cooks, or Robert Woods, or Tyler Higbee, right? It's just random. It depends who's open, right? These are the upper echelon receivers, yet you can't 100% guess, okay, this guy's going to be amazing consistently because he's going to get open every time, right? Yes, some of these receivers are that good to get open every time, but again, it's less efficient and less predictable than a running back position. Anyway, so besides that point, let's get to Odell Beckham, right? Again, I'm reading stats. In his first 3 seasons in the NFL, there was nobody better than him, right? Probably Antonio Brown was the only other guy, but even then, these numbers are just ridiculous, okay? In 2014, 15, and 16, right? Last year, he got injured. Bada boom. He only played 4 games, right? But in 4 games last season, 300 yards, 3 TD receptions, and he was throwing a fit last year. He was punching. I don't know what he was doing. He was just pissed off on the sideline, getting angry for no reason. But anyway, so in 2014, 91 receptions. It increased to 96. The following year, in 2016, it increased also to 101. Right. So that's an upper. When the targets obviously went up. Right. I'm looking at them right now. When the targets go up and the receptions go up, that's great. Why? Because that's more opportunity for the receiver to produce more, right? He had 1,300 receiving yards in his first season. He had 1,450 in his second and 1,367 in his third. And his touchdown count, right? In his rookie year, he had 12 receiving touchdowns, followed by 13 in his second year and 10 in his third year. Odell Beckham is my number 3 wide receiver this year because honestly, he's not as good as DeAndre Hopkins, and he's not as good as Antonio Brown, right? In my opinion, right? And I think that Eli Manning kind of doesn't help him in this specific scenario when it comes to fantasy points. Yes, he's going to be better than the other, 7 guys that I'm going to name after, But then again, I 100% believe that Odell Beckham is the number 3 receiver going into this coming season. By the end of the season, if he's not a top 3 receiver, I'm going to be surprised. Because honestly, he's got the talent for it. And, he's shown up to training camp. He's done everything right this offseason. He stayed healthy. And, with this Saquon coming in, with Evan Ingram being in his second year, with the improvements to the offensive line of the Giants, I think Odell Beckham is, he's going to be put in a situation that's going to breed success for him. And I think he's going to have a great year going into the 2018 season and by the end of the 2018 season, excuse me. Anyway, so let's go ahead and move on because we can't be here all day, right? Even though I've been here all day suffering over these videos, trying to get them out so that you guys can, get your content, get your fix. I'm telling you, man, the drafts are just around the corner and I'm excited. And I honestly cannot wait. Okay, so Julio Jones, number 4. Last season, Julio Jones, it was a little bit of a disappointment coming off of that. That was a once in a, I don't even understand how to describe it, right? Coming off of that devastating loss in the Super Bowl, right? The Atlanta Falcons they weren't the same team, right? Last season, nobody performed to the same standards as they did the prior in 2016. It could have been the absence of Kyle Shanahan and the implementation of this Steve Sarkisian offense. It could have been a Super Bowl hangover. But truly, nobody performed to the standards that they did in 2016. Julio in 2016, right? 1,409 receiving yards on 83 receptions, and he had 6 touchdowns, right? That's fantastic numbers. Last season, he had 88 receptions, which is more receptions, right? He had 20 more, I think it was 19. Yeah, 19 more targets. 1,444 receiving yards, excuse me. But he only had 3 touchdowns, right? For Julio standards, for a guy of this talent, they got to get him the ball more, especially in the red zone, right? Yes, Julio's going to be double covered all the time, but they've got to get this man the ball. That's why he's not a top 3 wide receiver for me. A guy that, just look at these yards, okay? Let me just read these out for you, okay? They almost look like I missed a key and typed the wrong number, but these are not fake, right? In 2014, he had 1,593 receiving yards. In 2015, he had 1,871 receiving yards. And then again, in 2016-17, he had 1,400 a pop. The way I see it, he's the number 4 wide receiver. I think he's going to improve this season. I think Sarkisian is going to try to get him the ball in the red zone. They have to, right? Julio dictates this offense, right? Yes, Matt Ryan is a big part of it, but Matt Ryan is never going to be the same, I think. So you got to feed Julio the ball because fantasy owners demand it, and we really need Julio to step up and not just be a mediocre wide receiver like he was last year. He's not mediocre. Don't get me wrong. I said mediocre, but we expect more from Julio. We expect Antonio Brown-like numbers from Julio. That's what we do. That's what we expect. That's what I expect, at least. But we're not getting it. Anyway, next, we're going to Keenan Allen at number 5, okay? So Keenan Allen in 2016 tore his ACL in the first quarter. Came out last year. He had a great year. In half-point PPR, 223 points. If I'm not mistaken, he was he was the 6th ranked wide receiver no, that's not right. He was higher. He was the 3rd ranked wide receiver in half-point PPR scoring leagues. Keenan Allen. All right, it's pretty plain and simple. 102 receptions last season, 1,393 receiving yards with 6 touchdowns. I think Keenan Allen is going to repeat those exact numbers. With Phillip Rivers there, Keenan Allen is his favorite target. Keenan Allen, I can't stop telling you. Keenan Allen is a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy in the NFL. Yes, he doesn't have the size or the speed that some of these other guys have, but his route running is crisp and clean. He finds himself open majority of the time. They even have to play Denver twice a season with those corners, and it's still fine. Why? Because Keenan Allen is a monster with Phillip Rivers. This coming year, with the absence of Hunter Henry, I think his production goes up. There's going to be a couple more balls thrown in his direction, therefore increasing his value here and there. I like Keenan Allen a lot this season. I mean, that's pretty much it. I can't explain it any more than that. Number 6, Davante Adams. Okay, so Davante Adams, he's going to be the number 1 target for Aaron Rodgers this coming season, right? No more Jordy Nelson, which is unfortunate. You know, we're going to all miss Jordy Nelson and Aaron Rodgers being that combo, especially in 2016 when they lit up the league and Jordy Nelson was the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy and half-point PPR scoring formats. But Davante Adams, I mean, he is consistent enough to where I have him at my number 6 spot. Now, what do you mean by consistency, Andrew? I mean that this guy is going to score you 10 touchdowns a season. Why? Because he's done it the last 2 years, right? Even without Aaron Rodgers last year, and he had who do you have? Brett Hundley. Oh my goodness, Brett Hundley. What a mess. He had Brett Hundley last year. He posted similar numbers, right? In 2016, he had 75 receptions for 997 yards, 12 touchdowns. Great. Last year, okay, having only played 14 games, and a lot of them without Aaron Rodgers, 74 receptions, only 1 difference, 885 yards, okay, that's a 110-yard difference, and 10 touchdowns. With Brett Hundley, he was able to put up these stats. Imagine when Aaron Rodgers is out there, there's no Jordy Nelson, and Davante Adams finds himself open in the red zone. Looks like Davante Adams might be creeping up to a 14-touchdown kind of year this coming year. I'm telling you, Davante Adams. Okay, so here's the thing about Davante Adams. He's not going to catch the ball as much as like Antonio Brown. He's not going to have as many targets as him. But the thing is, in the red zone, he is Aaron Rodgers. You know, he's one of his favorite 2 targets because I'm not going to discredit Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham this year is going to be a monster in that red zone, right? But Davante Adams is going to get his. I think if he can get up to that 14 touchdown count, that number 6 is going to be a number 4. Just saying, okay? He'll creep up on Julio, okay? Anyway, so let's go on and move on to the next guy. We're going to be talking about Michael Thomas. Okay, so, you know, a lot of people have Michael Thomas a little bit higher. Me, on the other hand, again, I am believing in the idea that the Saints want to run the ball. They want a 2-headed monster. As soon as Mark Ingram comes back, they want to keep the ball to Drew Brees' hands. Last season, Drew Brees had the least amount of passing touchdowns and passing yards that he's had in the last 7 years. I mean, all signs point to the Saints changing their offensive scheme. They want to run the ball. They want to dictate the ball offensively through the ground game, and then they want to play a tough defense, which they have a good defense, and they do so, right? Michael Thomas, you know, he's been consistent. You know, he has the consistency of a lot of these guys, right? These upper echelon wide receivers, these tier 1 and 2 receivers, they produce on a yearly basis. And that's why they're up here, right? They're not up here because, they randomly. It's not like a Saquon where a rookie gets drafted and everyone thinks, well, this guy's. No. Because wide receiver is a little bit different. You've got to prove yourself, and you've also got to be consistent. You know, last season, 104 receptions, 1,245 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. Now, the year prior, he had 4 more receiving touchdowns. It's all good. I think eventually he's going to find a little bit more, room in the red zone in which he's going to catch maybe 2 more touchdowns. Maybe 7 will be the number of this company. Not looking number 7. There you go. I think 7 might be the good number for him. But, anyway, I really think Michael Thomas is good. I think it's definitely in the second round. Michael Thomas is an excellent pick. Just off of, just pure consistency, The last 2 seasons, he's had over 1,100 receiving yards. He's got the targets. Last year, 150 targets. I don't have the breakdowns on how many targets were in the red zone, but hopefully they're going to increase this year and get Michael Thomas to that upper echelon receiver. I won't be surprised if he ends up going, becoming that number 5 overall wide receiver, but I like him at the number 7 spot this coming season. Okay, number 8. Who do I have? I got Adrian Jeremiah Green. AJ Green, he's talented. He's a bigger guy. I'd say he's been underperforming as of late. He's so good, but Andy Dalton just can't get him the ball. and that's not really his fault. He can only control what he can control, and he can only be as, good as his quarterback. And his quarterback is sometimes just not great. There'll be a game Andy Dalton comes out and throws 4 interceptions, and, AJ Green's weekly fantasy points will reflect that. I think, AJ Green, I'm just looking at his stats right now for the last couple seasons. He used to be elite, right? 2 seasons where he had 1,350 receiving yards, 1,426 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns apiece, right? Injuries are extremely detrimental to a receiver like this. In, 2014, 13 games played. 2016, only 10 games played. Last season, played the entire season, right? But, he had 142 targets, only caught 75 balls. That's a lot of garbage from Andy Dalton, I'll tell you that much, guys. It's a lot of Andy Dalton garbage. This year, he had 8 touchdowns the last season. This year, I think he's going to improve. I think he's going to be able to produce good numbers at the number 8 slot. You might be thinking, 8's kind of low, Andrew, isn't it? Well, last season in fantasy, the scaling was a little bit off, right? Receivers were not putting up, tons of points, right? Comparatively, okay? I'm going to go over this. There's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 8 receivers in half-point PPR last year, okay, that scored over 200 points. 8. Only 8. Now, in 2016, there were 11, right? So there's a little bit of a difference. There's a little bit of a discrepancy. A lot of these guys, they're fluctuating here and there. I like AJ Green to be in this area, barring no injury. I don't think he's been healthy this offseason. He's been playing in the preseason. I like him at number 8. Just hopefully, please. The offensive line has been improved for Andy Dalton. He just got to deliver the ball. He's just got to get the ball to him. He's such a big target. How do you miss 50%? I don't understand it. It's confusing. Anyway, number 9, Mike Evans. Another big target. Another guy, 6'4 plus, that's going to go up and grab the ball. He's not going to get, yards after the catch. No yak for him. But Mike Evans is a big target that in the red zone can be dominant, right? In 2016, Mike Evans was the number 2 ranked wide receiver in half-point PPR scoring formats because, 173 targets, 96 receptions, 1,300 receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns. Just off those stats, that's a monster year in 2016, right? Last year, not as good. Why? Jameis Winston wasn't healthy. He himself wasn't healthy. Did not play the entire season. He had only played, it said 15 games played, but it was really 14 because one of those games he got hurt early and he had 1 target for 0 catches. Boom, he was gone. Mike Evans last year, 71 receptions, only 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think he's going to improve. I think he's going to be way better than he was last year. But, there's a caveat. I thought about keeping Mike Evans off this list and, having one of my honorable mentions up here. But we'll go over the honorable mentions after this next guy. Okay. T.Y. Hilton. Okay. T.Y. Hilton's number 10 for me. T.Y. Hilton's an animal. Another guy that in 2016 was way better than he was in 2017. Well, he had an excuse at least, right? So did Mike Evans. The quarterback health issues, that really determines a lot of it, guys. And it's just luck on whether it's luck. Ha 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 ha. It's luck. Ha ha. No, yeah. It's either bad luck, good luck, whether something breaks your way, falls your way. Gosh, that was such a terrible pun, and I walked right into the trap by myself. I didn't even know it was coming. Anyway, I see T.Y. Hilton this year being the number 10 ranked wide receiver in half-point PPR scoring format in fantasy. I think T.Y. Hilton, with the resurrection of Andrew Luck, is the main benefactor of his return. Yes, Andrew Luck has not looked great in preseason, but I think he's serviceable enough to get T.Y. Hilton back to form, get him back into fantasy owners' lineups, because last year there were some weeks I couldn't touch him, right? I could not start him in some weeks. So hopefully he's coming back. He's healthy. Andrew Luck's looking good enough, again, serviceable, to be a good enough quarterback to get T.Y. Hilton the ball and to make sure that he is relevant. Hopefully he can stay relevant, because last season, Jacoby Brissett decent quarterback, but he's no Andrew Luck. Anyway, real quick, an honorable mention that I wanted to think. It's got to be Doug Baldwin. I don't have an image for him, but I really thought hard about bringing Doug Baldwin into the fold, maybe kicking Mike Evans out of that top 10 situation, keeping him at an 11 or 12 spot. Doug Baldwin this year, he's going to be the only receiver on that Seahawks team that's going to catch the ball a ton, right? Like Tyler Lockett, has he really been a guy that can catch the ball 80, 90 times a season? No. There's not really much there. So I think Doug Baldwin, yes, he's a little bit banged up right now, but don't let that scare you. Draft him in your leagues because he's going to be ready for week 1. And even if he isn't, okay, that's fine. Week 2, week 3 on, he's going to be a number 1 wide receiver. I think he can be a top 10. He's my honorable mention. I'll probably have him at 11, but it just depends on him and Mike Evans. As soon as they say that Doug Baldwin's healthy, he's going back up. And there goes Mike Evans back down because of the suspension of Jameis Winston. Anyway, how long have we been here for? Not too long, which is perfect. I want to thank everybody for watching. I appreciate all the support. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please like if you liked today's episode. And comment below. Is anything did anything I talk about today, shock you? Is there someone that I missed? Is there someone that should be on the top 10 for this coming season? Let me know. Let's talk about it. I'm curious. What do you guys have to think about this? Did I rank someone too high? Did I rank someone too low? Maybe T.Y. Hilton is your number 1 wide receiver, low key. I don't know. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate it. And the next video is going to be tight ends. But that probably, tight ends. And then we're going to get to the kicker defense in one episode. It'll all be set perfectly. Anyway, good luck on your drafts, and I'll talk to you guys later. See you.